Welcome to another episode of Podcasters Unleashed. We're back again, same time, same place. In today's episode, we are getting a personal look into the mind of an American investor. We're putting Nelson on the hot seat today with our Journey of a Podcaster series. So send in your questions for Nelson. You can ask him about life, investing, podcasting, anything you like. So send those questions in and we'll put them to Nelson. And we want to give him a good grilling today. We want to get to know everything about investing, what we should do with our money, and all about his life, what's been going on and what's taken him so far in life that he's got to this place. So let us know what you would like to ask. Send your comments in as you always do, because we love to hear from our audience. And before we put Nelson on the hot seat, we will let him and my other co-hosts introduce themselves. So Nelson, you're up first. Tell us about your podcast.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nelson J. Zambrano. I am the host of Investing in America, where we talk about how to invest in U.S. real estate, the entire life cycle of a real estate investment. To include, I leave a certain number of episodes where I interview incredible entrepreneurs that have nothing to do with real estate, but they got great stories and fantastic business practices. Carla, thank you very much. Over to you, Matilda.
Hello, everyone. This is Matilda, host of Coffee with Matilda, A Journey to Self. It's a podcast about finding yourself, loving yourself, and coming out of adversities in a stronger way possible. And over to you, Victor.
Thank you, Matilda. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Victor Sio. I'm the host of the Diaspora Entrepreneurs podcast, whereby we have conversations with diaspora entrepreneurs who are having a great time and have managed to exit from the 9 to 5 into a lifestyle of freedom. Over to you, Carla.
Yes, and I'm Carla. I'm the host of the Wonder and Wellbeing podcast, which is a podcast for parents and teachers of kids between the ages of 5 and 14 years old. And we talk about everything related to education and well-being. So check out our individual podcast. There's also Simon with Taxi Chronicles podcast. He's having some technical issues, and also Howler with Women with Stories podcast. So you can check out all our individual podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and any way that you like to listen to your podcasts. All right. So are you ready, Nelson? Because we have got some questions for you, and we want to know about investing. But before we start asking about investing, we want to be nosy. We want to ask about your personal life. So, Matilda, what do you want to ask Nelson? What have you been itching to ask Nelson this week?
Well, what was very fascinating when I met Nelson via our course, and also from podcasting journey. I understood his personality from is very affected by his military training and background. And one thing that stood very strongly, and even when I was interviewing you, it came out very important in my conversation, was how you were dealing with fear. It's something that I think I haven't reached my goals, a lot of my goals, maybe because of fear. One of a very important element there, and I'm sure lots of people, they haven't achieved what their potential is, maybe because they're afraid. They're maybe afraid of failure, they're afraid of, I don't know, success, gazillion other things to be afraid about. But you handle life in a very different note, and I want you to explain to us, because I feel like we can learn from it a lot in every areas of our life,
Wow, Matilda. Well, thank you very much. And before I just start this, I just want to put out a quick disclaimer, okay, for everyone here, the audience. Any advice I give here, it's just strictly my opinion, okay, just strictly my opinion. If you have tax questions, of course, deal with it with your tax advisor, your CPA, whoever advises you in these areas, all right? And if you want to get more detailed, we can have a one-on-one afterwards, and plenty of people that I've met with so far. So I just wanted to get that out. Matilda, going back to your question, and there's a couple of questions in there, right? But I guess the question is dealing with adversity and fear. And to me, the two big things, maybe three, is one, I'm going to feel fear. I'm going to have imposter syndrome big time. I know it. I'm going to go through a couple of t-shirts. Why? I'm going to just sweat those things out. And but I have to create something more compelling than the fear to get me through it. So it's not pretty. And then once I deal with that, I always have to have something to look forward to afterwards, whether it's another appointment, another meeting, something. But I always have to have something else that I have to look forward to. And that it's like I have a preset commitment to something going forward. I have to have a preset commitment, because if I don't, it's too easy for me to wallow and say, oh, woe is me and life is horrible. And like that. There's always got to be something else for me to look forward to, even if that's a coffee in the morning watching a sunrise.
Very nice. Lovely. Thank you.
Victor, any thoughts on that? Any follow-up questions for Nelson?
Yeah, I just want to find out where does he get, not he, but your hearers. I just want to find, where do you get this kind of this mindset from? Regards, have you always been someone who always plan ahead of time? So regardless of the setback or the success, you always have something to move forward to. Have you always been doing this?
I've been doing it for as far back as I remember, but I do remember that when I was a little kid, I got a book in the mail, and it was like a pamphlet, and it was about engineering. Now, I'm not an engineer. I was not good at those kinds of skills, but what I remember is that it had the space, and you had to write in kind of what you want your future to be and what you want things to happen in life. So I just remember writing about it, and I had this, I called it a safe in my house. It wasn't a safe. It was just like a wall cabinet, but I called it my safe, my secret safe, And I remember I put it in there, and it was like so special, and I would check it out every day or every couple of days, and I'd write all over this thing. So that was the beginning of where I would write things out and plan. And then in the military, because I had both careers at the same time, I was a military officer, Army officer in the reserves, and then in my civilian career. And then in the military, you learn a lot about planning and execution. So that would reinforce this. And then the mindset part, that came through more adversity, Matilda, big adversity. And, the military was big on dealing with adversity. But some very difficult things happened. So I had to gain some new skills on how to pivot. And some of these things took me out for months on end. I was just a basket case. So it was a combination of that. And I did some training on NLP too, neuro-linguistic programming, which is how the mind thinks, how the mind thinks on reframing things. So it was a combination of all that and getting beat up along the way.
Wow, amazing. Well, that's quite a journey, actually. And I think we want to go a little bit further back than that as well. Howler's here now. Welcome, Howler.
Hey, Howler.
We know that Howler's got some questions for you about your family and how you came to be in the USA, because that's also part of your journey, isn't it? Howler, jump in and ask away.
Yes, Carla, it was exactly the question that I want to ask Nelson. How you ended up in the USA in the first place?
Well, I guess we got to bring my parents onto the podcast, because they were the ones who came here. So my family's from Colombia, South America. And my dad was in the Merchant Marine. And when he was a little kid, he made a decision. I am leaving Colombia to a better country. So, and my father's family had been emigrating to leaving that part of the region where they were. So my dad joined a Colombian Merchant Marine. He traveled all around the world. He visited. He used it to visit all these different countries. Actually, he went to Egypt. He went to the Middle East. He went to Lebanon. He went to France. He went to all these places, and then he decided on the U.S. So he went back to Colombia, met my mom, married my mom, brought her up. She was kicking and screaming. She didn't want to come up, but she followed her husband. And I was born in New York. I'm a product of Brooklyn kid. So that's how I ended up in the United States. And then they sent me back to school in Colombia as a little kid to an expat school. to a school with to expats, so I would go back and forth, and that was the best gift my parents ever gave me, hands down. Both cultures.
Yeah, awesome. We've got some questions actually coming in from the audience. So Olga says, do you think the situation in Colombia, options for Colombians to move their capital? So we're getting into questions now about investing. So what would you say to that one, Nelson?
Okay, so the situation in Colombia is pretty tough, right? Colombia is a country, it's probably one of the wealthiest natural resources countries in South America. It's bordered with Venezuela. And Colombia has a lot of civil unrest now. And I would say Colombians are very worried about them turning into a Venezuela, which has you could call it a failed socialist type state. Socialist type because it's not really socialist, it's just a failed state. And they're worried about if in the next elections, the extreme keyword left-wing government wins, it'll turn into a Venezuela. So I would say the situation in Colombia looks tenuous. For the next 2 years, they're going to be worried about things, and options for moving capital out of Colombia, their first choice, I would say, would be the United States, to move their capital to, wealthy Colombians. They're going to stay in Colombia and their money's going to move. Their capital is going to move. They're going to stay and live large. If it gets really bad, they'll move too. But there's other options for them to invest in the United States, such as income producing properties across the nation, although they love Miami, it seems. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. We've got Simon with us now as well. Welcome, Simon.
Great, Simon.
We've done the being nosy. We asked about his journey and his personal life and stuff, and now we've moved on to investing in business. Not that we won't be nosy again later, because we probably will. But what would you like to ask? What have you been itching to ask all week, Simon?
First of all, apologies for being late. I think I've fallen my sword about that. What I'm interested to know is why investing in America? I know you live in America, but why? What are the key things? 3 things, let's say, that why America is special for investing in America to the rest of the place in the world?
Simon, that's a really good question. Probably the first big thing is accountability, right? Okay, so what do you mean by accountability? Accountability is the difference between, and I'll ask this question to the audience, okay? And I'll answer it at the end. What to you is the difference between accountability and responsibility? So I'm gonna switch my order around. I'll ask this question to the audience. What to you is the difference between accountability and responsibility? So I'll say accountability, and I'm going to come back to it because I'll give out the answer. The other thing is transparency, right? We have a very transparent system. We're probably one of the few governments in the world that we sue ourselves, right? We sue ourselves when one part of the government is doing something it shouldn't be doing. So that's a big time type of accountability, right? We sue ourselves. I have seen police officers give other police officers speeding tickets, okay? And it's a question of, is that your rights, your money is protected here. It's not like in other places where, hey, I'm from this other country and I have less rights if my money's over there. No, if your money's here, you get the same protections, the same privileges, the same responsibilities as a U.S. citizen. So those are the things that make the U.S. as a general place a very good place to invest. Also, it's designed for the entrepreneur. Many countries, if you go bankrupt, if you declare bankruptcy, that's it, game over. In the U.S., the system is designed so that if that happens, you can bounce back. The social stigma is a lot lower. There are systems in place for a person to start again. So those are the reasons why. And I'm looking to hear what people come up with the difference between responsibility and accountability. And I'll make somebody remind me of that, because that's a key question as to why investing in the United States, why investing in America.
Okay, Victor, what do you think of that?
Yeah, for me, I say, Yeah, giving the analogy of using the police that we see, that they kind of sue themselves, the legislature even sues themselves. I won't even go that far. What I would say is the fear if America collapsed, the last 2008, when the collapse of the mortgage, the subprime market, when it collapsed, the whole world felt the shock. Now we're coming to another bubble again that's going to burst. All of them originating from America. Why should people still go back there again? Why?
Well, Victor, that's a really good question, right? So, we have the most stable economy. Okay. So when we have the most political stability, okay, the biggest economic stability, and you have predictable.
Not the last 8 years now. Go ahead.
Well, actually, yes, we do, right?
Oh,
So
4 years.
you don't.
4 years, I mean.
Well, the 4 years is you had an aberration, but even with that aberration, you still had the systems and checks in place. We have a president. We don't have a king for life. You see what I mean? So even though the president can say, I don't want to do this, and I can tweet like crazy, at the end of the day, Mr. President, you got to follow the rules. You know, at the end of the day, that's what happens. So there's hype, and then there's noise, and then there's what actually happens. So again, you have political stability. You don't have overthrows. You don't have coups. You might have some stupidity. You might have some drama. You might have some reality TV stuff, but you don't have that. You have economic stability, and you have predictability of returns. So, and when you were saying that the whole world felt it, well, we have the ability to rebound back a lot faster. And then when you're talking about what happened in 2008, we're a big country. So that what happened, if you look at the East Coast and the West Coast, that's what felt it. The middle part of America, they read about the 2008 economic collapse. It never impacted them. East Coast and West Coast felt it, not middle America. So hopefully that helps answer the question.
Yeah, anyways, that was the passing question. But my main question right now is
so that was my warm-up? Okay, all right, good. I'm glad I had some coffee.
When you're ready, when you finish there, Victor, I just want to jump in because I just Googled, and the most sustainable country in the world is Denmark. America's not in the top 10, so I'm sorry, my cousin over there.
Okay.
There's many countries. England's the fourth, even though we've got a king. But anyway, back to you, Victor.
Yeah. So my question now, since regards the U.S. capital flight. Mm-hmm. Again, so can you pull out? How many percent can you pull out from your capital, your investment capital or profit equity? How many percent can you actually pull out?
Victor, could you elaborate more on that? What do you mean? How much we can pull out? Are you talking about return, or are you talking about moving money?
I'm talking about return. One, say I invested $500,000 on the property. I sell the property. I made a spread of say like 5-10%. Can everything come back to return to source as a foreign investment?
Well, first of all, you have to have some tax situation that you got to look at, right? I mean, there's got to be a tax treaty between the U.S. and whatever that country is. And so that's the first thing you have to take a look at. And then afterwards, it's your capital. It's your money.
Okay. If you put it that simple, then that's cool. Yeah, I think we have a question from Sasha. Can I read?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What do you think? Okay, this question from Sasha Serge Pakarian. What do you think about the dollar situation?
Okay. So
why would a foreigner want to invest in the US right now? Dollar situation.
Okay. So I'm assuming he's asking about the dollar stability. Okay. The dollar is pretty much the gold standard in currencies across the world. I know that there's Bitcoin and other things, but the dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, that the U.S. is this country that's going to be here and to stay for a while. So I'm assuming that's what the question is asking about. It's a question by itself. And then why would a foreigner invest in the U.S. right now? Well, a couple of things. One is you have, like I mentioned before, economic stability. You have political stability. You have predictability of returns. But on top of that, it depends on what country that foreigner is coming from. So, for example, there's some countries that they are going to be having a lot of economic instability. So, for the you have movement of you have flight of capital to quality, right? It's better to have your money in the United States, even if it's in a bank account earning 0%, because the safety of the principal, the safety of the money. The bank's not going to steal your money. You don't have to worry about waking up tomorrow and the bank saying, hey, the president of the bank ran off with your funds. So those are the kinds of things. One is where the money is going to, the U.S., and then what situation it's leaving. What's happening where it's leaving. That's a big issue. Okay. I mean, I guess the best example I'll give is I think about Iran, right? In Iran, we froze their money, right? We froze their money when they took over our embassy. And but we didn't confiscate their money. It's a big difference. We didn't keep their money. It's still their money, even though they're quote unquote our enemy, and it's still earning interest. So that's safety of your money. Okay. And I think Victor, did that help out?
I hope it helps.
Sasha. Okay.
Yeah,
so Sasha, if you want me to go deeper, feel free and let's just type away. I think Simon had a question.
Yeah. Well, from your experience as a podcaster, what is the main thing you advocate for when it comes to investing in America?
That's a good question. It depends on the people that I'm interviewing. I always look to learn a lot from them, but pretty much across the board, their big thing is always due diligence. Do your due diligence so you have as little surprises as possible and you match up with what it is you want to have your results to be. So that's on the investing part. And as a podcaster, I'm always amazed at the quality of people that I can get on as guests and their stories, their adversities, what they go through, and their role there. So I'll put a plug right now. Listen to Investing in America. You'll learn a lot from these guests. They're great.
So Nelson, what I meant, let me ask the question another way. Do you advocate for investing in property or trading in America, in the stock exchange? What is it exactly you encourage people to invest in when considering investing in America?
The majority of the times, and as I'm answering this as a podcast, the majority of the times I'm talking about investing in real estate. Okay. At times I will interview people on other aspects. So for example, not too long ago, I interviewed a Bitcoin fund manager. Okay. They invest in Bitcoin. So we talked about comparing Bitcoin to real estate. Really good episode. But for the majority of people, it would be investing in a hard asset like real estate. Generally an income producing property. Why? Because it's great that you can put your money somewhere. It produces an income. And at the same time, you can get tax benefits from it. And at the end, so you have been getting an income the whole time. You've been able to knock down your taxes and you get capital appreciation and it goes up in value. Okay. Most other things, that doesn't happen. When you're in the stock market, it's a 1-for-1 deal. If I have $100,000, that's the max I can get. I can't use leverage to get that 100,000 and me go in with 500,000.
I think Matilda had a question as well related to that and the types of investments.
I was allowing the non-Americans to ask questions so that we can talk what's happening in our country. It was interesting, Nelson, when I was listening your podcast, you were talking about fourplex, and I thought it can be a very interesting question for Americans in America, that they're maybe they're young professionals, they're making some money and they want to invest in something. Can you elaborate a little bit? Because I feel like I haven't heard about it before from other places, but in your podcast, you talk about it a lot. And I mean, I'm interested. So I want to see what are my steps. I mean, obviously, you cannot talk about it a lot, but just overall view. And also, you have a course that you teach these things as well. So I would like you to elaborate it a little bit.
Okay, so Matilda, thank you for that question. First of all, I love investing in fourplexes. Okay, in the United States, that is like a gigantic best kept secret. I do have a course on investing in fourplexes, and it's how to live rent and mortgage payment free, right? What makes it so unique? What is a fourplex? A fourplex is 4 units. Normally, a house is 1 unit, right? Single house, single door. A fourplex is 4 units or 4 apartments. They can be contiguous together, or it can be kind of a little bit separate. But for the same down payment, you can buy a house. You can buy a 4-unit apartment building. Okay, you can buy a 4-unit apartment building. So in the United States, as a first-time homeowner, and first-time homeowner has a big definition. Okay, don't get fooled by that. You can buy from anywhere from 10%, some cases 15, 20, but from 10% to 3.5% down payment, you can buy 4 apartment units. Okay, so that's huge. So why do I like that? Because a person could conceivably move into one apartment, and some apartments are pretty good size, and then you have 3 rents coming in. So you're basically living rent and mortgage payment free. You're basically living rent and mortgage payment free. And that's a huge thing. At some point, a person can say, I'm going to move out. I'm getting married, kids, whatever it is. They can move out of that. And now they've got 4 rental units. Okay. It's paying for itself easily, and there's money left over. So for the majority of people, that's a huge thing. If you're starting out brand new in your career, I'd recommend get a fourplex. A little bit extra work. But guess what? You have 4 apartments. You're buying for the same down payment, not even the total price, but the down payment is buying a 1 house. Let's flip to the other end of the spectrum, right? A person says, hey, I'm an empty nester. I want to travel the world and all that. Guess what? Now you have your property paying for itself. You can lock it up. It pays for itself, and you can travel as an empty nester. So going after a fourplex, the fact that we have that opportunity here in the United States, it's a huge, huge thing. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I just love them, and I'm buying another one.
That's great. I mean, exactly. I'm looking into it as well. I'm interested in it.
Victor, we've got some comments, and then Paula wants to ask.
Let me put one more plug for the fourplex, okay? As a veteran in the United States, as a military veteran, you are allowed to get what's called a VA loan, Veterans Administration loan. So you can, that veteran, depending on if they have a disability rating, they can put in a 0 down payment, and buy $1 million home. The home just produces the income. So if you've got a guy who has some startup and he's doing very well for himself and he was a veteran, he can buy $1 million home, 0 down payment. Or he can buy an incredible fourplex, which throws off a lot of income, have the fourplex qualify for the loan. So that's an amazing thing. Another, and that one's a veteran. Okay. So thank you, Carla, and thank you, Matilda.
Yeah. So we have one comment coming in from Ariana Ugoscioni. Yeah, Ugoscioni. Yeah. How would it be for an Italian to invest in the US?
Okay, so Ariana, thank you very much for that question. I was very fortunate. Was it about right before the pandemic? Make a trip to Italy. I actually got to meet with some Italian family offices, and Italy has a stagnation economy, right? They're stagnant. If anything, maybe going a little bit on the downside. So for them, they'd be looking at getting more stability of returns. Okay, stability, economic stability, political stability. And it would be very similar to the Colombians. There's a tax treaty, so that takes care of itself. And you got to have a great CPA to help you out in that part. But what they're going to get is much higher returns than they're going to find in Italy. Italy has a lot of bureaucracy when it comes to rents.
Nothing. I think you're getting the question wrong.
Okay.
Or mixed up. How would it be for an Italian to invest in America.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the
Because
first thing you would do is you would.
It ties up to one of my questions as well, which is what is the minimum requirement? So these two questions now, one from Ariana, and the second one is from me. You know, how would it be for an Italian or a Nigerian, an Italian, to invest in America, and also what's the minimum legal requirements to invest in U.S. real estate?
Okay. So the first one is to taking it from the basics. You just can't be from two countries, Iran and North Korea. Okay. So those are the two ones right there. But once you scratch those things off, which I think it's pretty easy for most people to do, as a minimum, that depends on who you are investing with, right? If you're going to invest in another country, you might want to work or look for a really good ground partner, someone who knows the lay of the land. It would be no different if I was going to invest, let's say, in Nigeria. I would team up with a Nigerian. I wouldn't go in blind on my own. All right. So it's the same way. So you would want to team up with a good U.S. ground partner, which deals with the due diligence part.
So as an Italian, she would need a partner who can do the due diligence. Is that what you're saying?
Well, would help her do the due diligence, because the learning curve is huge. Take, for example, the question that Matilda had with the fourplex when we were talking. Most people don't know that. So they would miss out on a huge opportunity. Let's say on $1 million fourplex, someone could say, hey, you got to put down 30%, $300,000. But the actuality is you can put down 10 or 5%, which would be 50,000. Big difference between putting down 50,000, 300,000. And we could probably get that 50, actually a lot less than that. So that is an example of having a good ground partner that can guide you along the way and tell you, this is good, this is much better.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions from Patricia. Victor?
Yeah, from Patricia Polak. She says, which states are the cheapest for people right now?
Okay.
Take liberties with the plead. I think
Okay.
People, yeah.
Okay. Plead. Okay. I wasn't sure if that which state has the most people wearing, pled. I don't know. So the question just changed, but the least expensive states are generally the states in the Midwest and the South. Okay, so they have a great low cost of living. So you're talking about Georgia, Alabama, the Carolinas, North Florida. Those places have the lowest cost of living, right? Texas has a pretty low cost of living too as well. And then as far as states that are tax-free, they pay no state income tax. That is Nevada. I believe that's Nevada, Texas, and Florida. So those are the least expensive states and the best weather. Best weather as well.
Really? Yeah. Another question for
California.
I'm sorry, say again?
What about California?
You say something like this.
Well, California is not cheap to live in, okay? California is like a country by itself. California can be expensive. However, California has a lot of big benefits. It's got a lot of our top nation schools. It's got UCLA. It's got Stanford. So California, if California ever left the United States, it would not be happy for the rest of us. So because California produces a lot, it also pays a lot. But, again, California literally goes almost from Canada down to Mexico, the entire length of the U.S. So in the major cities, it's more expensive, but it also appreciates a lot too.
And sorry, what about New York?
New York is right up there with California, except New York has California has more variety because it's bigger, just because it's bigger. I mean, you really have two New Yorks in New York. You got New York City and the 5 boroughs, and then you got the rest of New York that hits Canada. So,
Quick question. What is it as a podcaster that you have learned than you wish you knew when you had started podcasting?
Ooh, that's a good question. I wish I would have known the power of podcasting before. I got into podcasting because I was going to write a book. But I could just, as a matter of fact, I got the thing right here, and I was just, let's just admit it. It was just overwhelming. I was like getting kind of lazy. I said, you know what? I think I'll do a podcast instead. Difference is you write a book, you finish a book. You do a podcast, you're always podcasting. So, right. So I got into podcasting to be lazy, right? Because I was lazy. But the great thing about podcasting is you're always learning how to podcast and the new guests and people. So I would have started earlier podcasting. I would have started earlier had I known more about it. And again, the people, the network that a person can develop is amazing in a relatively short period of time.
Are there any specific skills someone needs to set up a podcast, to become a podcaster?
The first skill I would tell you to do is every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. British Standard Time, to listen to Podcasters Unleashed. That would be the first skill I would tell you to do. And why? And I'm not joking. I'm very serious, because you have 6 different podcasters, always a different style, different techniques. Okay, so that'd be the first thing. The second thing I would say is everybody has a good message. It's just that we're afraid to get it out. So it forces a person who's an introvert to get the message out. And everyone has a message. I thought some people had the most weirdest, ridiculous messages. But guess what? There's someone there that has an interest in it. So, yeah.
All right. So we talked a lot about investing in real estate, and we know that not everybody is keen on loans. Different people have different thoughts about loans. And I know, Howler, you wanted to ask a few questions. You brought this up. So jump in and ask away.
Yes, Nelson, it's an easy question maybe for you, since inviting everyone to invest in America. There are a lot of real estate investors. They are Americans, like Grant Card. He is one of the biggest state Americans, and he talks about how buying a house is not a good idea, especially if you are going to take a loan, because a house is not built for people, it's built for banks. And also he's saying that a house is not an asset and it's a liability. And he's not the only one who is saying that. Robert Kiyosaki also is saying the same thing. So could you speak to that? How do you convince people to invest when there are a lot of risks behind it?
Okay, Carla, thank you for that question. And you mentioned Grant Cardone, right? So he's part of the reason I got into podcasting, because I met Grant Cardone at a conference, and I said, Grant, I'm writing a book. And he said, I want to be in your book, because you know how he is. I want to be in your book. And that was it. And then some of his guys, they took my information. So there was another conference, and he saw me again. And he said, what's up with the book? I want to be in your book. So I'm like, oh, my goodness, I got Grant Cardone chasing me now, because, I haven't included him in my book. So so that's my Grant Cardone story. Okay, so so he is correct, okay? He's correct up to a point. For a majority of people, buying a house is a very good way for them to accumulate capital. For the majority of people, okay, because the house appreciates. The mortgage goes down, the house appreciates. There's people that if it wasn't for them owning a house, they would have very little to no net worth, okay? Of course, other factors come into play. So, again, that's the majority of people. If you want to kind of take it to the next level, yes, a person could, invest in the stock market and so forth, but you can't loan against the stock market, right? You can't loan against it, right? I mean, you could do like options and so forth, but you can't really loan against it. There are other ways a person can make their residence an investment. One is house hacking, where they're renting out different rooms, or a fourplex. That's definitely investment, hands down. And you can buy a couple of them. You just got to be kind of smart about it to do that. And there was another question in there that was thrown in, I think. something about the loan part. I just want to make sure I fully answer it.
About what Grant Card say about the loan is built for banks. The house is built for banks and not for people.
Yeah, I would say that there's truth to that, okay? Because the bank's got to make its money. But remember, the bank is making interest, very little interest. The appreciation, that profit, that equity, that's all the owner. That's all the owner. So let's say the bank makes 3, 4, 5% interest, but the owner gets to keep the equity. The owner does not split that equity with the bank. And the equity is the difference between what the property has appreciated to what's owed on it. So a person could walk out with $100, $200, $300, $400, $500,000 in equity once they sell it on a bank loan that was maybe $80,000, $90,000, and you're only paying on the interest and some of the debt.
But the loan, it's on for 30 years or 20, 25 years. I don't know how much people take from the bank, but it takes a lot of time to.
Well, let's really break that one apart, right? So a person could have a 30-year loan, but that doesn't mean they got to take 30 years to pay it off, right? You could pay it off in 10 years, 5 years. You want to stretch the loan out so that the payments have the least amount of financial impact on you. You want to stretch those payments out, have the least amount of financial impact on you. Let's say the property appreciates a lot, goes up a lot in value. You can sell that property, go buy another property, or get refinance it, go get another property. So the 30 years is a way to stretch it out and keep the payment down. You can make extra payments. You may not stay there that long. You may say, you know what, I'm going to buy a couple of these. As long as my income covers that, that's how I can build more wealth. And by income, I don't mean your own working income. I mean the income from the property, what it produces.
Okay, but actually with all this real estate investing in America and everyone trying to buy a house, it's like enters in this dream, which is the American dream, which I feel is a little bit overrated because everyone thinks that American dream is buying a house. So do you think that the bank created this kind of American dream so people could take a loan? What do you think about that?
Well, that American dream started at the end of World War II in the United States, where you had hundreds of thousands of servicemen literally coming back from being deployed and fighting in Europe, in Asia, and they wanted to start their families, right? I mean, you had literally hundreds of thousands of 18-year-olds to 30-something-year-olds who had been drafted and had gone to fight all over the world, and they were ready to come back to get their lives and education started. So they needed to have housing for all these individuals, men and women, who wanted to get started with their families. A lot of them had lived through the Great Depression, where they were living in these little tenements, like in Brooklyn and these places, okay? And they wanted to get their life started. And for most people, to get your life started, you get married and you have a house. You have a home to build, okay? So did the banks, were they there to facilitate that? Sure. Did they take advantage of it? Sure. Did that help grow our economy? Sure. Did that help that segment of people build up a lot of wealth? Yes.
We've got some comments, Victor. They're coming in. So can we read some of those?
Let's get it flowing. Yeah, from Patricia again, Patricia Polak. She says, during this COVID time, have you lost or made money personally? That's
a great question. The answer is both, right? So we had a deal we were working on and we were about to close on it. And then COVID hit, right? So we couldn't close on this deal because of COVID. The income went down on it. We didn't understand what was going on. The owners didn't understand what was going on because income means you got to have people that are healthy, right? Income, they pay rent. and then about a month later, COVID officially came out. So it was what COVID is what hurt us then, right? So that hurt. Other areas have done very well. Okay, so they kind of balance each other out. But that was a big surprise. Talking about, so going back to the government investing in the U.S., right? If we had continued on forward, the income would have dropped down a lot. It would have been a lot of nail biting. However, there were other programs that kicked in that would have helped us navigate through that storm, such as the stimulus packages. So that's the second part of the answer to that question from Patricia Pollock.
Yeah, I've got another question from Gil George. Question: with what other sectors do you diversify your investment portfolio?
Not really too much anything outside of real estate. I mean, there is some, because if you look at the United States, right, just think about the country, it's pretty big. It goes from the Pacific to the Atlantic. So the diversification really comes in what area of the country, what region of the country that a person goes to, for myself. And then on top of that, each one of those regions of the country has a different economy, right? So for example, if you're in Texas, in Austin, you're going to be in high tech. They're big into high tech. If you're going to be in Houston, you're in oil, right? So that's how you kind of diversify. One's in oil, one's in high tech. If you're in South Florida, you've got some tourism and what's going on in Latin America. So that's how you do it. That's how you, and if you're in the Carolinas, believe it or not, banking. So that's how you, for me, that's how I would be diversifying.
Okay, so still on that question. So you're saying if you are advising someone to invest in U.S. real estate and they want to diversify just a little bit, are there any complementary portfolios that you would like suggest?
Well, okay, diversifying, when you say a little bit, it's like being a little bit pregnant. You either diversify or you're not. You ain't like a little bit pregnant, right? So,
Okay.
so and it's something that a person should be doing, right? Because you want to catch those waves of the economy, right? You want to catch, just like I said, on the East and West Coast, when they go up, they go up. When they go down, they go down. The Midwest, you don't have the big highs and the big lows. And the way we do it is people invest with us, okay? We sign for the mortgage, okay? So we don't do houses really. We do kind of bigger things. And so our capital is on the line. So if people say, hey, what's your skin in the game? We sign for the mortgage. So that's our we have skin in the game, so to speak.
Okay, good. We have another question from Patricia Polak. What are the requirements for Canadian purchase?
For a Canadian purchase, Canadians have a little bit of a different. There's certain things that they can do that people in the U.S. can't do, and they have to get with their CPA to be able to do some of those things. And that's it's interesting because they're a border country. There's so much similar to the U.S., but other things that it's not. Best thing for us to do is kind of have a one-on-one conversation. But actually, where I live in Hollywood, Florida, we have a lot of Canadians who invest down here.
Okay, cool. Another question from Patricia. Oh, you're on fire today. Yeah, Patricia Polak says, are we moving into digital currency?
You know, Patricia, that's one of those questions that is being answered as we speak. I would encourage you to listen to my podcast interview with Noah Perrin, Bitcoin fund manager. And there's certain segments of the economy that are looking to move to that area. But there's a lot of hesitation too. Okay.
Okay.
I will have a lot more leverage showing up with a brown paper bag full of cash than Bitcoin.
Okay, cool. Another question from Patricia Polak. Will Biden be able to get the economy back, or will it be social welfare?
Ooh, that's one of those good red herring questions. Will it be able to get the economy back, or will it be social welfare? Will it be able to get the economy back, or will it be incredible, like right, the rebound of 2012? So he's got a big job on his hands, right? Because our economy was booming for a long time, right? From 2012 right up until COVID, right? So it was bound to do for a recession, right? The cycle of recession. And then COVID hit. And quite frankly, we as a country mismanaged COVID, right? We mismanaged it horrendously. So he has a job to restart the economy, similar to in 2008, where they had to be a bunch of programs to stimulate the economy. And only a government has that kind of resources and power to stimulate an economy. No single businessman can do that. That's what we did in, just let me fully answer it. Just like we did in the Great Depression, where we had to build I-95 highway, and in California, all those highways, and I-4 right down the middle of the United States. We had to build the Hoover Dam, all those things to stimulate the economy. We'll have to make a huge investment in our infrastructure, right? One hacking attack took out the Colonial Pipeline. So that's a huge investment in infrastructure. All that has to happen there for us to remain a competitive superpower.
Okay, great. So, because it seems this is where the question is actually going from Patricia. Now she says she has like $80,000. What's my best investment option with no job due to COVID?
Ooh, that's really specific. That depends on what country you're at. That depends on what you're looking to do, right? Where you are in your life cycle. Are you just getting out of school? Was it an inheritance? Do you have kids? All of those factors come to play. The big question I'd have to ask is, who do you want to be and where do you visualize yourself being in the next 5 years? And then backwards plan from that.
Sorry, Nelson. I don't think that's what she's really asking. She's saying she's got $80,000.
Right.
Should she invest in land, property, a business, agriculture? There's so many different things that you could invest in America, and that's what she's actually asking.
Right, and that, but before you can get to that answer, we have to find out what does she want to get out of life. That will decide the investment. So, for example, if somebody says, "Hey, I don't ever want to see snow again in my life," an investment in Alaska might not be a good option. You see? So it depends. What is it? That's why I asked the question. Where does she visualize herself being in the next couple of years? 3, 4, 5 years. And then based on that, backwards plan to that.
I would ask a question. Go on, Carl.
I was going to say, we've got some other questions that are not investment related. So we were going to jump away from investment and real estate, because I think we're learning so much on this episode, and we want to get a little bit of a rest so that we can process what we're learning about money, Nelson. So I just want to jump back to, you mentioned at the beginning about NLP, and Sasha had this question about NLP, which I think is really important, because dealing with all these issues to do with finance and real estate and investing and fourplex and do I take a loan and shall I not, and I've got 80,000, it is a lot for people, and you do need a certain mindset, don't you, to be able to deal with this. And I think NLP does tie into that. So I just want you to talk a little bit about the NLP that you mentioned at the outset, and also any mindset tips that people can use who maybe this is all new to them, maybe it's really going above their head, and they're not sure where to start with themselves, because your podcast is also about investing in people, isn't it? And investing in yourself so that you can develop the right mindset. So tell us about NLP, and also about any mindset hacks that people can start with if this is all new to them or challenging.
Yeah. So NLP, it's a neuro-linguistic programmer, right? So probably some people think that's hypnosis, and there is an element of hypnosis in that. But what it is the study of how the brain works and how high performance people use their brain. That's, I'm going to just describe it that way, of how high performance people use their brain. And I think it's an amazing tool. We used it in the military. I did not know it was NLP. It was just something that helped me to go from point A to Z, and for the soldiers too. But for when communicating with other folks, and especially with ourselves, it's an amazing tool. We use all the submodalities. hearing, speaking, smelling, touch, taste, feel. What it's the other one? Touch, taste, feel, and sound. So it's a fantastic tool to communicate, and also how our brains think. Quick NLP story. There was a girl in the class in college that I was in, and I could never understand how she got such good grades, and she would never share her secret, right? Well, it wasn't until years later I noticed in an NLP class, she was using NLP techniques to be able to study better and get better grades than the rest of us. Okay. But, she kept it all to herself. So that would be like an example of it. It's visualizing where you want to be, how to get there, what resources do I need to put into place. Those are NLP resources and tools, and it's a whole field of study. If you've ever been to a Tony Robbins event, strong NLP practitioner right there, very strong NLP practitioner. And there's a couple other ones, Dr. Richard, begins with a B, can't remember his last name.
I think, Nelson, all the presidents have done NLP. All the presidents of America. I was reading something about, because I'm very much interested in NLP, and they were saying all the presidents, they've gone through the period. I mean, they've took the less classes, courses.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised. Now, did they pay attention? That's a different story, but I'm sure they have.
Yeah, we've got a question also from Gail, which kind of expands a little bit. Victor, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, and we got another fantastic question from Gail George again. The question is, how has your military background trained you for entrepreneurship and investing?
Gail, that's a great question. It's kind of two different birds, right? The military by itself is people that are civil servants, right? Many people are civil servants. They got 2 paychecks a month or whatever it is. The way that the military helped me, was because they do train you to deal with a lot of adversity. There's a lot of kind of out of the box thinking, which causes you to butt heads with a lot of people because it's a very strict environment. However, most results are gotten by people that are good at operations, good at accomplishing a task. And a great thing for me was, it was always, here's what you need to do. You figure out how to best do it. Not, we're going to tell you how to do it. So it helped me get very unorthodox methods that I could replicate over and over again. And you had to learn how to get buy-in from superiors, right? How to get resources, the whole gamut of almost like raising capital and getting sponsors and partners. Okay. The other thing is, it sounds strange, is when we seem to have done a lot of this. When we invade a country, we look at where we can bomb and not bomb, right? And investing, it's a lot like that. Where it's very similar, right? Because you want to have your property close to the factory where people leave work, right? So it's similar. You want people to be close to their employment. They pay more for rent. If they're far away, they pay less for rent. So those little things come into play.
Okay, wow, that's amazing, Nelson. You've given us so many tips, so many things we need to go away and read about NLP, about our mindset, about all the different things that we can invest in. And I know you put out a question at the beginning of the show to the audience, which have been absolutely amazing. So to all of the people that participated, Olga, Sasha, Ariana, Patricia, Gail, thank you very much for your comments and for your amazing questions. We also had Ariana who responded to your question, Nelson. So Victor, can you read her comment? And then Nelson, can you give us any final thoughts related to this comment or any other topic that you want to leave us with?
So Ariana Ugosini came back with a response to your question you asked earlier on. Responsibility is when I stand as a creator, taking responsibility for everything in my existence. Accountability, on the other hand, It's when I'm open and willing to recognize my responsibility in front of others. It's when my word and actions are congruent with what I said I will do. So that's it from Ariana.
Okay.
Great one,
So,
Ariana. Great one.
yes, Ariana, that's a great. And I promise you guys at the end. So the difference between, and this is going to be in my book, by the way, and I'm probably going to do a solo cast on this because I've restarted the book finally. The difference between responsibility and accountability is responsibility. I can delegate responsibility. Okay. I can delegate that responsibility. I can delegate. Hey, you do this, you do that. Accountability, I can never delegate. Accountability, it goes with me. The buck stops here, like President Harry Truman used to have on his desk. It goes with me till the day I die. So that is something about when investing in the US, we're big into accountability. It's a responsibility that I can never delegate. Case in point, quick story. When I was a kid growing up in New York, in the summertime, the power would go out. The electric company couldn't take everybody, had the AC going, and the power would go out. So my parents' refrigerator, and just about worker, it would go out for about a couple of hours, and the food would go bad, right? So the next week, we would all get a check. A check would come in the mail from the power company. Why? Because they were accountable. There was no one else that could provide electricity for New York City. So the electric company was being accountable. No one else can provide accountability. It's easy to say it was an act of God. That's great. But we are being accountable. So everyone got a $50 check for groceries that had gone bad. That's an example of responsibility and accountability. So in the US, when we froze the Iranian assets, right, we have a responsibility to our citizens, but we're being accountable. That money at the end of the day is Iranian. At some date, at some point in time, it's going back to Iran. It belongs to them. We're not going to let them use it against us, but it's staying in the US and it's earning interest. And when things are nice, here's your money back with your interest. So that is a reason. That is that accountability. Okay, there. And the other thing is on loans, right? We had a question here about loans, and I remember. Why are loans good? Depending on interest rates, depending on this and that. The thing that helps you out about a loan is that it helps you leverage your money. It helps you make that money grow. So with a small amount, you can grab a big investment, a big asset. Okay? And that's kind of about it. Thank you.
Are foreigners eligible for that loan? Before you wrap up,
as a matter of fact, you are. Feel free to call me. Yes, yeah. Are they available? Yes. That's at the end of the day, the answer is yes.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so we are going to wrap it up for today, guys. So Nelson, you can kick us off. Tell us where people can find out more, because the comments and the questions are still coming in. We've got people that really want to ask you more things. So where can they reach out to you? Where can they find out about investing in America and more about your podcast? Okay,
you can find my podcast. You can find me on Spotify and iTunes. Okay, Spotify and iTunes. You can find me right there. Investing in America. And also at some point this month, we'll be launching our YouTube channel as well. So there. And on accountability. So, right. Well, we can go more into that. It's a whole separate podcast issue. But yes, you can find me there. And Nelson at normandygroup.us. Nelson at normandygroup.us.
And Victor, your podcast somehow connects as well, doesn't it? Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, my podcast is Diaspora Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we talk about African and Caribbean entrepreneurs who have find a way in a strategic manner to like exit from the 9-to-5 towards a lifestyle of freedom. So we talk about their strategy, how they did it, how their wins, and their setbacks as well. So you can find us on all platforms when it comes to podcast. Also, we're on YouTube, Diaspora Entrepreneurs Podcast.
And Howler, tell us about Women with Stories.
Yes, it has nothing to do with investing or this for entrepreneur. If you fed up from the headache of investing, you can come and listen to powerful women, successful women that they have gone through different challenges. So tune in on Spotify and all other podcast platforms. Over to you, Simon.
Thanks. My podcast is Taxi Chronicles. We do have investors on there. They're mainly sharing their gift about what it's like to invest as a trader, banker, and various different places where they come from around the world. We're on all platforms and we post daily at 8 a.m. British Standard Time. Over to you, Matilda.
Well, my podcast is about finding yourself and understanding yourself, loving yourself. I think before investing and dreaming of becoming a successful entrepreneur, you have to understand who you are. You have to understand what you need. So you listen to my podcast first, and then you go to investing. I'm joking.
Absolutely, Matilda. And I'll follow that up. I will second that, Matilda. If you want to invest in your children, and make sure that you turn them into good people before they start talking about money, hopefully, and prepare them to be good investors in life in general. You can check out the Wonder and Wellbeing podcast as well. And that's everywhere that you will find podcasts. So check out all our individual podcasts. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share and show some love for all of Nelson's efforts and all of our efforts. And you can catch us back here at the same time next week, every Monday, 7 p.m. London time, 2 p.m. Which time, Nelson?
2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, 2 p.m. over there on that side of the pond. And as I said, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Podcasters really appreciate your support, and we need your support. So do that, share it with everyone who you think will benefit from that. And Nelson, final thoughts?
Yes, final thoughts is, first of all, thank you, everyone. Thank you for my co-host, and thank you for everyone. And two things. One, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can, or any of one of us on the specific topics. And we really also want to hear what all of you would like to see and hear on Podcasters Unleashed. We really would like to hear, your opinions. Hey, can you guys talk about this? Hey, can you guys have a debate about this? Whatever topic under the sun. Big thing about us, and we talk about this. No topic is off limits for us. Now, we may kill each other when we turn off the screen, but no topic is off limits for us, okay? So, yeah, feel free to let us know, whatever it is. No topic is off limits. Okay, back to you, Carla.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nelson. And thank you to all of our guests, all of your questions and comments, and to my lovely co-hosts. Catch us again next week, guys.